Are we doing it? How's it going, guys? Um, oh, this is too trippy to have me on my own screen beside. Okay, well,
You can top up the chat if you want.
yeah. I have not streamed much, y'all. It's been a long time and I've never done it properly. And wow, so active. I love that there's 100 people. This was supposed to be so secret. I mean, we had a good amount of pre-orders, which thank you guys so much. So this is going to be really fun. Throw any questions you have for me in the chat. Ryan, who's off screen here, is going to be moderating tonight, and he's keeping track of everything in case I, can't have eyes on the chat the whole time. And really tonight, I actually did not prepare anything because I would like to take your questions. I want to just be responsive to whatever is on your mind or whatever you're wanting to learn from me, as well as we're going to be looking at as many tracks as possible from folks who submitted stuff. And I would just love to do as many of those as we can. I don't think we can get to every single person with how many submissions came in, but I think that's also a great opportunity for the kind of learning that we could do tonight, looking at actual projects, all different skill levels, genres, and we can get into all different aspects of music production, writing, and however things hit me, wherever things. Or we also actually on the forum had people answer the question of what kind of feedback they would like on the track. So I think we'll be looking at a lot of interesting stuff. Um, yeah, I think we'll probably bounce back and forth between doing a few questions, looking at a few tracks, and that's how the stream is gonna go. And also let us know if like levels are okay and everything like that. This is like the most pro I've ever done a stream. Usually it's just like a webcam and a friend moderating, and now it's we got lighting, we got like technology, stuff's happening, and that's thanks to Ryan, who is new on the team as of a few months ago. And I'm just gonna look at some comments. Um, from Patrick, what's one cool production or composing tip that I'm loving right now? This is like maybe an obscure one, but it's just what popped into my head um, when I was working on something recently, and I was just like trying to find the right space for different elements, and I was blending a lot of different reverbs, and I just had like some on sends and some as inserts, and then I would like have different combinations of stuff going to different sends in different amounts, and then also I would like group tracks. So I would have say like the individual track might go to the reverb, but then it would go into a group, and then that would have different effects on it, and then maybe that would also go into another reverb. And I haven't really gotten that like chaotic with my reverb setups before, but it really worked to just create something that was a little more dynamic than just like having your one reverb send that you send a bunch of stuff to, or having like just a reverb for each instrument or each track or whatever. It was kind of cool. I think I'm going to try that more. You end up being a little more experimental with stuff, and maybe there's a lot more subtlety to it, a lot more like kind of like figuring things out and like, am I really hearing a difference? But I think it did make a difference. Um, from Alexandra, you've been interested in diverse tunings in the past. Any plan to get back into that? I have, I took a course on microtones once, which was fascinating, but it kind of like that level of very intense, different tuning. I'm not sure if I'll go into too much. Um, I have a big love for just like equal temperament. I know it's very boring, but I I like using different scales for sure. I think experimenting with that is really fun and just opens up the writing process and like gets the inspiration flowing in a completely new kind of way. Um, and I mean, I don't know about other. it hasn't been on my mind a lot lately to explore other tuning systems, but I do like sometimes just having, like, especially when I'm on the modular, let's say, kind of doing things by ear and then finding something that, is interesting and is probably close to sort of a standard tuning, but definitely not exact. And you just get something that's like interesting, and something sounds like it's got its own distinct character by being a little off tune. Um, from your boy Sam, how do you stay motivated to keep making music? Or phrased differently, how do you keep making quality music even if you don't want to? I guess I always do want to, in the sense that, like, it's a passion and a goal and a hobby and a job of mine that I'm, very committed to and always thinking about. I definitely subscribe to that idea that you just have to show up, and whether that's like a small amount of time every day or every week, or it's just like whenever you can, you try and like do something. And I guess I feel like I'm not as much the kind of person who gets discouraged if a session doesn't, if I don't end up with something great. Maybe I've just done it enough that I know, like, it'll come back, or I can't expect there to be uh, consistent progress. It's not like every time I show up to this, I move it forward the same amount and then, get to the finish line in my expected period of time. I think I just have embraced the fact that there's always going to be something that goes wrong, or something that I don't like, or something that I thought I liked and then I didn't later. And but just keeping at it, I feel like, you chip away, and it always continues to improve overall, even though there are the downs mixed in with the ups. Yeah, I think it's that consistency. Um, Ryan, any questions you've caught that I
Yeah.
might want to tackle?
In a question I found out, picked up was someone wrote, "I really want to know where on the Venn diagram did space time fall. I really want to know." Yeah.
Yeah, the Venn diagram for space time was definitely not what's trending. It's definitely not. Well, I was gonna say it's definitely not what's worked well before. In some ways, it was a little bit of what's worked well before, and I guess just in case everyone in this chat like hasn't seen that video or hasn't got to this part in the book, the Venn diagram was something that I figured out for myself in terms of how to prioritize what types of content I was going to make. And for a good amount of years, I would break all of my ideas down into these 5 slots on the Venn diagram, or figure out which slots they fit into, and I would only do an idea if it fit 4 of them or more. And the 5 things on the diagram were, I should remember this right off the top of my head, but I'm blanking on some of them right now. I think there's what's trending, what's worked well before, what makes money, what I'm good at, and is it like what I'm passionate about or something? I can't even remember the 5th one. Um, but I mean, it goes to show I haven't really been paying attention to this in the last few years, because that was when I was really focused on growth and like performance. And it was still all ideas I wanted to do, but I would just like filter out all the ones that didn't fit into this framework, because that to me felt like what was going to indicate that an idea could have potential for going viral, or like reaching people, being picked up more in search, that kind of thing. So doing space time, it was definitely first and foremost just like this wild idea I had that I knew I had to do. Like, as soon as I thought of it, this idea that I love science fiction. I love the idea of kind of taking viewers on a really unexpected journey that slowly gets weirder and weirder and more fictional. I love the idea of commenting on our social media use, and how kind of parasocial it can be, or how easily fabricated it can be. So for a lot of reasons, it was this big passion project that I knew I had to do. And then I guess had no idea about the money side of it. Like I turned down all sponsors during it because I didn't want that to be uh, anything that would be an issue with the episodes. Although I got the Make Noise shared system, I wanted to do a synthesizer review, and I reached out to Make Noise because that was a really interesting synthesizer to me, and I let them know about the project early. So I guess that was the one thing that would have counted as a sponsor, although they didn't pay me or have any say over the content or anything. But yeah, I guess it didn't fit in too many of the boxes because the what's trending is definitely not that. What's worked well before, I was using formats that had worked on my channel, sampling things, tutorials, reviews, making original music. So I guess that was kind of the part of it where I was like, how much can I hold on to of what people expect from my channel while also doing this completely ridiculous thing of pretending that it's happening in space? Yeah, what's another good question, Ryan?
Yeah, just a sec. Let's see. What do you think is going to happen with music? Oh, sorry. Tayo writes, what do you think is going to happen with music in the future with AI on the rise?
Yes, I am definitely down to talk about AI as it pertains to music. I think that nobody knows what's going to happen. It's definitely something very new, very powerful, very different from what's come before. But I feel that technology can't be stopped. I may be a little bit fatalistic about that. But, when I think back on a long enough timeline of music history, I think about how even just 100 years ago, I might have touched on this in the book, like sheet music was the primary way that music was disseminated, or that, you would feel that you had established yourself as a music creator. And that kind of turned into record making, and there was touring to support record making, and now records don't generate a lot of money, and touring maybe for the average artist, let's say, might be a bigger part of the income now. So I feel like all of these things change. Computers came into the picture. That really changed a lot of the ways that we approach recording music, creating music, disseminating music. So I do look at AI as just another of those tools, a thing that is definitely going to shake a lot of things up. It is going to kill some jobs. It is going to create new ones. It is going to make some ways of creating less popular than they used to be. And it's going to open up other kinds of creative avenues as well, just as a new instrument that was invented did, just as the internet did, just as recording technology did. And yeah, I guess I look at it like that. It's going to be one of those things. I think there are good things and bad things about it. I do think there's stuff to figure out around rights, of course, and data sets, training models, all that. I think that from what I've seen, it seems like this is a big generalization. I feel like the music industry is doing a slightly better job than the visual arts side of things. I don't know if
Yeah,
do you
that's fair.
think that's fair to say?
That's fair
I
to say.
think that the companies that I've seen doing, for instance, voice swapping, they seem to be looking out for the artists. Like I've checked out a bunch of them, and it seems like they do have it like top of mind to credit people who are being voice swapped, who they're looking for talent who are like passionate about lending their voices to that. They're obviously signing off on that and agreeing to, I guess, whatever it is. I've seen different arrangements where like some people want to be credited in whatever final thing they're used on. Other people are like, I'm getting paid for this, like being on this platform, and anyone who uses my voice can just use it without crediting me, or I'd prefer not to be credited. And I've seen people where it's like, you can use my voice as much as you want, but if you officially release a project, I want to be able to approve it. And I think that as one example with voice swapping, I think that the music industry is like demonstrating an awareness of those rights being important. So hopefully that continues as we see like more and more of these types of tools pop up. And I haven't done any AI stuff. I don't think like in my in any of my output I've like very quickly experimented with a few things, but I haven't done like a video on it or anything yet. Oh, other than I use the Splice AI tool that just like finds loops that goes together, which I've been using for a couple of years. But yeah, I don't think I've done another video on it. So I've been wanting to do a voice swap video and like really experimenting with it and messing things up. And hopefully that'll come soon. Let's do one more question, but keep them rolling in, and then we'll start looking at some tracks, and we'll kind of bounce back and forth between looking at tracks and answering some questions. I like this question from Elliot. How many of your projects would you say get dropped or abandoned, and do you prioritize finishing projects that you're no longer vibing with? I like this question because it's like one of the things I've struggled with the most like in my life, and I feel like it's probably pretty common that you wonder, you know, how much stuff should I be making that I am excited about enough to finish, or that I you know, even have the time or energy to finish, and is it okay if I don't finish them or don't like them or whatever it is. And I feel like the more that I've gotten to know other musicians and definitely other people who have released stuff, other people who've been doing it for a long time, just everybody has so much stuff that they hope that they'll finish one day, and we only get to do a fraction of it. And I think that's just how it is. And you know, it makes it hard, but I also think about the flip side of that, of like how kind of sad or even boring would it be if you just like had a perfectly manageable amount of ideas and then you did them all and then you were done. I think that it's good to have that kind of churn and that like excess of inspiration and ideas and things to chase, and you know, hopefully you can find the motivation and the focus to like take some of them to the finish line. But I think it's just the way that life works is that we don't get to do it all. And that applies probably to more things than just finishing songs. But yeah, a great question, and definitely something that I wish I kind of internalized a bit more deeply from a lot earlier on, because I think when I was young I was like, oh, I've really got to like put time into all these things that I've started and make sure like I finish as many as possible or whatever, and focusing on the quantity of it more than not even more than the quality necessarily. I feel like I was always so striving for quality a lot, but more than I would say like which are the most meaningful to me. So yeah, with that, why don't we take a look at some tracks? We're gonna try and get to as many as we can in the stream. Probably can't get to everybody, but Ryan's been keeping tabs on who is in the chat and did submit a track, and so we're gonna look for sure at people who are present. And let's get Ableton going and switch over here. Who's up first, Ryan? These are, we're just randomly selecting based on who's here.
21.
21?
Yeah, go to 21.
Okay. And I've got my little spreadsheet here. So 21 is Jaden Rose, and your comment was, I get really in my own head when writing or mixing guitar music. Something about this mix so far isn't doing it for me. I also feel like the song structure and pacing needs work, but I'm not sure where. Okay, cool. So let's hop over to this track. I'm going to, we have the stems. I think I'll start with just soloing this like full mix. We'll have a listen, and ooh, it's a little chuggy there. We'll see what we have to say. Interesting soundscapey thing happening off the top. Guitar sounds great. I think that delay and then that atmospheric sound is creating a great vibe. Oh yeah, thanks, Ryan. Good to have a little of me on the screen. So mix-wise, I want to say that the guitar feels a bit forward. It feels like louder than the drums, slightly harsh maybe. And then I'm gonna wait a second. This is another thing about listening while you're looking at a waveform. You're like, oh, something different is gonna happen. Maybe we'll hold off for a second. Yeah, so on the question of pacing, I was gonna say that it feels like it's potentially slow, but it's also, a question of a genre. I feel like, we're 2 minutes in and there hasn't been a vocal, so I'm getting like post-rock vibes. Not just for that reason, but also, of course, like the instrumentation and the writing. I think that like it all sounds beautiful and it's working. Mix-wise, we could definitely look at a couple things, and then maybe the beginning, I would say, if I were putting this out, I wouldn't make such a long intro of just soundscape. But I think that also a lot of areas lack a lead element. I think that would be my main sort of writing feedback. So what I'm hearing is like great textures, atmospheres, chord changes, dynamics, like it's building, it's pulling back, there's clear sections. But sometimes it feels like the guitar could be the lead, and other times it feels like it's kind of vamping and we want something that's gonna come to the forefront and really like pull our attention. Yeah, this stuff is beautiful. And I think it just feels like a little bit like just the bed for a lead melody of some kind. Yeah, this is pretty epic. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm gonna jump ahead here a bit. We have this nice big section, tails off into... Yeah. Okay, so structurally, I can make some suggestions too, because I would say after this like big climactic moment, we still get like more than a minute of this denouement, let's call it. And I think like the sense I get throughout the piece is that there are a lot of different variations on your ideas, and they're all great, but potentially, and this, could be stretched and squashed depending on your aims with the genre and everything. I think there could be some cuts based on the flow of the energy, and like even if you're just looking at the waveforms here, you like start quiet, you build, quiet, build, quiet, build, quiet, and then that's the climax. And for the way that like I feel as a listener going through this story, it feels like maybe one of those could be chopped. Working in threes is great. And then I also feel after the climax section, it dies down, but it kind of like hangs out, and then you have a couple different things happening. There's like a beautiful plucky thing, and then if we go a bit forward, that's changed to this palm mute, and then if we keep going, we go back to the soundscapes. And I feel like at this point, as one example of like structural stuff, you probably just need to choose one of those things to hold off on, because after this climax, I feel like we're not, as listeners, looking for like new developments. I think it's like we're ready to feel the ending and have that rest. Yeah, so I think that like everything is written beautifully, and the mix. I'll talk about a couple things in a second, but I think it's also pretty close. And yeah, I think there's those structural notes, and then just the idea that maybe more of a lead element could play a part in some of these sections. But let's look at the stems first. Let's see how close they sound to the mixed version. Yeah. So like, is this the main guitar? I'm gonna turn up my sub pack here a little. I think like letting that I'm almost 6 decibels. I kind of just pulled it back. That's like a pretty significant move, but it feels like it lets the drums punch a bit more. And then the ambient stuff. Oh wait, I'm not on exclusive solo. This feels like maybe unnecessary, or at least not. Maybe it just comes down, or maybe it's not all the way through, because I do see you have it, and you have automated the volume. But I think because it's so almost constant, this could be something that you nix for some sections, and that will just be like an instant bit of contrast. Especially because it's kind of like outside the key as far as what tones I'm hearing in there, which is not a bad thing. Like it's great to have those interest notes and like something different. But I think, yeah, when I hear them in there and then take them out, like all this other stuff becomes clearer. So I think it's a matter of like removing that in some sections, or even, you know, riding it more where you want it to be. We could do like an automation that let's say, where's kind of like the main. Oh, this is a very, very slow build, right? I was gonna say if we had a section that was like sudden, you could automate it to, well, let's see if it works here. What's happening here? Like if we decided it wasn't necessary there, you could like have it, you know, not be in this section maybe, and swell up. Or like even more drastically, it swells up, but also like just cuts out. Maybe with a reverb tail or something. Yeah, like those kinds of things could make some like pretty easy moves to make it more dynamic and have better kind of just mix focus, you know, where your ear's drawn to and what's competing with what. Yeah, I think that like it's definitely in a solid place, and it can, without too much work, I think you can get it to another amazing level. Sweet. What do we have next, Ryan?
You want to do questions or just go straight to the next one?
Let's do a couple more tracks, and then we can do a couple more questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
You want to do 17, Estella Ramirez?
All right, 17, Estella Ramirez. Look at your notes here. This song, Don't Leave Me Here, was created using the Book of Chances. All right, my little card deck. And inspired by a fictional character. Ooh, from Good Omens. Do you have any feedback on how to improve, whether it's in songwriting, arrangement, production, mixing, or mastering? All right, cool. Cool. Thank you, Estella. Let's give this a listen. Great ear candy off the bat. Interesting, like maybe reversed reverb vocal sound.
There was no No one in hell.
Ooh.
I fell for each question like stars over thousands of years.
Cool. Oh, this is really interesting. And I love your voice and delivery.
Don't leave me here. Oh, don't leave me here. Don't leave me here. Don't leave me here. I go too fast for
Okay,
you.
sweet.
You know it's true.
I'm gonna skip ahead a bit again for the sake of time. Seems like we get another verse and chorus.
You're my favorite enemy, which makes you my best friend.
Okay,
No
this is an interesting one. It feels like it's in this like avant-garde pop kind of world. The vocal feels really cool. I like the emotion in your delivery. I think I want to talk about instrumentation, production, structure. I think that when I hopped over here to this section that we just finished listening to, it felt very similar to the previous two sort of like quieter sections, these things that I guess I'll call verses, although I'm not entirely sure if the melodies are doing different things.
I'd burn to
It does feel similar.
rescue you, which makes you my best friend.
Yeah, okay, so slightly different, but still like same range of vocal, and where I feel like this area is a bridge with that melody living in the same range, as well as a lot of the instrumentation being the same. I think that would be kind of the main, the biggest part of the song where I feel like some more stuff needs to change. The right off the top, though, man, this was so interesting. These sound effects, is that down here? Yeah, this stuff really grabbed my ear. I love that. And then there was another thing that I thought was going to be ear candy, which...
I used to think there was no one in heaven worth
Where was it?
knowing. No one
Uh,
in hell.
where is it? Yeah, that! Okay, where is that? I guess it's all in the synth stems. Okay, that's too bad because it would be cool to play with that. So when this sound came in, it was so so different from anything that I would have expected there, and I feel like it really worked. It almost from how like your voice stopped right when that came in. It felt like this. It was just joined so beautifully, and it kind of filled in that space. But then I wanted it to stop. I didn't want it to turn into this additional chord part that you have.
For each question,
I think in part because your other synth already has a lot of high end, but also because that sound is so unique. I don't want it to be overdone. You know, I feel like it's the kind of thing where it's just like once a verse or something, or maybe even once a song, and you know, in the next verse you find a different cool sound that comes in. Like I feel like if it was just you finish this line,
no one in hell.
like stop it right there and let it like reverb out or something, and just let it be this cool sound. I mean, this is a very specific piece of feedback, but I feel like with what else you have going on and the kind of like role that serves, I feel like it's not necessary in a supporting way for the chords. And so you can just use it as this added interest thing. And, you know, it's kind of good news, bad news. Like maybe, I don't know how much work you put into like filling it out through the whole song, but if you decided to implement what I'm talking about here, just cutting it for most of the time, you end up having this thing that's like an extra bit of dynamics and interest because of it only showing up a few times to like grab people's ears. Just for funsies, let's play with what the synth track is sounding like. Let's.
I used to think
I mean, maybe we could go even more drastic. I think, yeah, what's missing here is just low frequency. And I know you're wanting to like make that chorus really impactful, but I think, you know, what if we shift this down? Yeah, I feel like, you know, a lot of the high synths compete with your voice. And you could have fun with like this more open, sparse thing and fill in more of that kind of low mid space with your chords rather than having them up a little closer to your vocal range. Okay. That's probably good for verse. Let's listen to the chorus again. Let's reset what these synths were doing. But again, like they are just competing with your voice a lot, and I feel like just taking them out. So, I mean, what if we did? Okay, I gotta redo my work here again. What if they were like this? For your verse, you know, in a lower range, we take out a lot of the highs. And then in the chorus, you just don't have them. And this becomes a more spacious, like, cool thing. Okay. Yeah, so I've got some low-end hearing issues that y'all might know about, and I've got the sub pack going. I think there's a little challenge for me in hearing like what's happening with this like rumbly kick. But I do think that you can get to this cool place where this is really hard hitting without having to have these same synth chords. Or I don't know if they're the same instrument. They look a little different here, but yeah, you still have that kind of like twinkly thing that I like. But I feel like, yeah, just having that space for your vocal would be really cool. And then the final thing I'll talk about will just be like production-wise. I think the drums and bass maybe... There could be some more... I mean, the low end feels like it's really banging in the sub pack. I think there could be more power in either like the snare or some of the perks you have going. Like that is a pretty small, sharp sound where it feels like potentially you could get something like a little more like cracking and doofy to support the power of the rest of this section. But yeah, I mean, those are the things that are standing out to me. I think it's a really interesting track though, and definitely keep pursuing this one. I hope this was helpful. Let's look at one more, and then we'll get back to some questions. What should we look at next, Ryan? What did you draw?
Let's look at 54, Zoe.
54?
Yeah, Zoe.
Oh, sweet. Zoe, I recognize your handle from you submitted something for the Magic Chord video that I loved. Let's see. So this song is named Block Icon, and I love that. Made this in 2032. In terms of specific feedback, there's quite a lot going on. Love thoughts on how it feels in general. It weirds, but is it too weird and non-diatonic? It's chaotic, but is it too chaotic and hard to follow? What could be added to make the experience of the song flow better? All right. I'm excited because I remember how cool your song in that other project with submissions was. Love the sound design.
So way. Chromatic life is static.
Yeah.
Stuck without a balance, scratching Dallas, looking Dallas, go what's happened. Is it dramatic? So way. And everyone know I try to find out. I can hide out. Now. I just use wax color. Don't keep it touching my mouth. Watch out.
This is wild.
So way. Chromatic life is static. Life is static. Stuck without a balance, scratching Dallas, looking Dallas, go what's happened.
Achromatic.
Achromatic. Scratching talents, liking talents, go what's happened. Is it dramatic? Hungry for trying up.
Whoa. Fun chops. Great use of silence.
So way.
Yeah, you weren't lying about chaotic. I love the. All right, I'll stop it there. I think there's so many cool ideas, and it's so unique. I think your non-diatonic approach, for those without the music theory lingo, like outside of a standard key, is really interesting. But maybe having like a couple more moments where it just all comes together and is something familiar could help. And that will just like up the contrast when it goes diatonic again. And I guess sort of same feedback kind of to different aspects of the piece. Like the, as one example, rhythmically, there's like this constant 16th notes energy. It's just like always da 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 da. Maybe for this spot you had, no, even there, you've got some elements that are just like zoom in. So I think, yeah, same kind of feedback with that. It's if it's constant, then it loses its power. So having moments or sections where it's just, you know, you're going the complete other way, you're using like half notes, you're leaving a lot of space. I think that will just make the chaos that you want even more impactful. So many awesome things to talk about, though. I kind of just want to like dive into these stems and have a listen to some of the things you're doing. I love the little Zoe sting that you had throughout. A lot of interesting vocal effects. Oh, one thing I did want to say is during the whisper sections. Yeah, potentially here you'd want to make more space for the vocal. Yeah, I mean, you know, when you're going for chaotic, it's always like a matter of degrees, and maybe you really want to just go to 100% with that, and I wouldn't be mad at that. But like, yeah, depending on how, like where you want to ride that dial, and maybe in different sections it's like more pulled back. That could be a way to approach it. And then I guess like the overall aim with that is that, you know, we're just listening to these two tracks back to back, the vocal and then these kind of like ear candies and things. Both of them, you're going really hard with the editing, and so there's this like level of chaos where you can't always follow it, and maybe that is where you want to draw the line. Is like there's like a chaotic aesthetic, but not chaotic to the point of like I can't actually separate out what I'm hearing because all of it is always so intense. What are some of these other sounds? So fun. Man, I love this. Yeah, like every track is so constantly shifting, which is great and fun, but maybe creates too much of that chaos overall. I would love to know. Let's do a follow up if you can. If you can leave a comment about what your approach was with this like non-diatonic thing, because I love that. It was very unique. Oh yeah, these drum edits are cool. Yeah, I'm interested to know if there was a method to the madness there, if there was like lots of different keys changing or like multiple keys at once, or just like total free use of all pitches. Really cool track though, and I hope that overall feedback helped. I think it's like dynamics in different regards could help you out, you know, with the spacing, the rhythm, the amount of chaos. Yeah, cool track. Let's do a few more questions, and then we'll look at some tracks again after. Anything come through, Ryan, that you want to highlight?
Yeah, Scar writes, was wondering, what's your workflow for sketching out quick ideas? Personally, they feel like projects usually take a lot of mind space to the point that you judge it like more harshly.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah, I think speed happens when I'm like hands-on more. If I'm working with hardware or even just like using like a MIDI controller with like knobs and buttons and stuff mapped, and getting more into that playful space rather than only being in the DAW with the mouse and computer or the mouse and keyboard. I think that helps because you kind of like make bolder choices. You're not like looking at a bunch of numbers or more possibilities. And I guess setting a time limit, that's something that I would recommend. You know, not every time that you sit down to write, but definitely doing these little, you know, you call them challenges if you want, or just like I started, I don't do this in every season of my life, but Ben Levin, who some of you might know, he's also a great musician and YouTuber. He turned me on to the idea of a composition journal, which is I don't know if there's any like concrete definition. I kind of just like heard him use the term, and the way that I interpret it is just like, you know, like another type of journal that you'd have. You just kind of like jot down your thoughts. You're not trying to like publish a book. You're not trying to even write anything that anyone else is going to hear. You're just letting some ideas out. You're processing your feelings, and you're totally okay with it never seeing the light of day. Maybe you even intend for it to not see the light of day. And I think, you know, you maybe first thing in the morning do 10 to 20 minutes just trying to create something. I think that can be an amazing practice. And I have a bunch of those little kind of sketches lying around. And then one thing I'll add to that is like, if within that time limited space, you set a few little goals like, oh, can I fill up 10 tracks with different instruments and sounds? Or can I think a lot about these different categories of sounds that most sections of a song will require. So that's a lead part, fills that are like, you know, the ear candies, the things that are in between the lead. They're not the main melody, but there's like something in the spaces. There's rhythm, there's pads, and there's what's the other thing? I got this from a book called The Mixing Engineer's Handbook, which I highly recommend. Lead, fills, pads, rhythm, and foundation. So a pad is like a sustained sound that's kind of always there. It's more background, usually like chords, could be bass maybe. Foundation is like your main drums and maybe bass. And then rhythm is what plays off of the foundation. So these aren't like hard and fast to specific instruments. They're more like, and sometimes an instrument will play more than one role. It's more like these are great. This is a great framework to think about. Like, is something playing the role of that foundational element, like a 4 on the floor kick drum or like a really great bass riff? That you might consider a foundation. A rhythm would be like maybe the hi-hat part that's ticking along. Lead part, often a melody, pads, you know, something could be like chord support. It could be like that ambient sound from the first track we looked at, just like something that's a bed there. And then the fills are, you know, the interesting things that are in between the lead parts. Those, I feel like, are a great kind of 5 basic things to try to aim for. And then you'll be able to fill in details around that. But if you're trying to like sketch something out quickly, if you get those 5 things down, you'll probably feel like you have a really good basis and you can make a judgment call about like, is this something that is worth pursuing, or is this just going to be a sketch and a good practice exercise? Yeah, that's what I'd say to that. Do we have another question? I also saw, I wanted to,
Yeah, if you want to call them out.
Zue said, I can't say I had much of an approach. I just mess around and made this song in a day. That's nuts that was made in a day. I need to see the tutorial on all the sound design. So fun. Okay, cool. Yeah, next question.
Yeah, Noah Massey writes, ADHD aside, they feel pretty scatterbrained and distracted when making music. Do you have any good strategies for focusing in on an idea or recentering yourself on a project?
Man, yeah, that's a good question. So recentering yourself on a project, focusing. I think this is something that you kind of get better at the more you do it, or that's how it has worked for me anyway. I used to really bounce around a lot between a lot of different things, and I think I still do in some ways, but I think I've also learned that just like picking a certain thing and just going for just that one thing for however long I might have that day makes a lot of sense. Like being deliberate, I guess, with the creative time that I have. So I think I'm pretty good at that now, and it almost doesn't matter what the task is. Like some days I just like really won't feel like editing a vocal or whatever, but I almost always, if I start doing it, I get into it. You know what they say, starting is the hardest part. But yeah, I think it's like, all right, if I've got this song I'm working on, well, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I think you can pick different scales of stuff to focus on, and that might, you know, suit you at different times or for different projects. But so for example, you've got 2 hours that you want to try and make some creative progress, and you might approach that as like, I'm gonna pick this one song and I'm just gonna like go into it. I'm gonna like do everything that I can with it. But you might go more granular than that. You might say, you know, like, this is the song I'm looking at, but I really need to like get the mix right. And you're just, you know, you're starting with your adjusting your levels, your pans, you're trying different effects and stuff like that. Or maybe it's like even more than that. You're saying like, there's this one part that needs a lot of attention, and that's the day that you're like, okay, I'm going to listen through this whole vocal and find the notes that I need to edit or find different takes for, or tune, or, you know, clean up breaths. And I think that's the big thing, is like just knowing that you're not looking at a lot of other stuff and you're making a decision to look at one thing. I hope that helps. Should we do one more question for now and then take a look at another track?
Yeah, this is a fun question. Your boy Sam writes, is a like less than $10,000 piece of equipment worth it even if you only make one or no songs with it?
is a less than $10,000 piece of
I
equipment
don't know. I
worth
think
it?
that's how you read the greater than less than signs, like towards the $10,000. So,
Oh, I guess. Well, yeah, that's a fun question. Like, is expensive? I mean, I think we could talk about it as like, is any piece of gear of any value worth it if you only make one song with it? I think that that's a very like it really depends on what that song is that you made and maybe where it takes you or if it couldn't have been done with anything else and it's something that you are really glad that you made. I think though that value is a really difficult thing to judge, and which is actually why I never talk about the price of any gear or software in my videos. I talk about my experience with what I'm using. I talk about my goals. I talk about like the workflow, what it felt like to use it. I try to have fun with it, but I think we got to recognize that every tool is going to be different in somebody else's hands, and the thing that I feel like is my everyday essential is going to be something that someone else doesn't care for at all, or like maybe has fun with for a week, but then they're kind of over it. So I think that can be so different from person to person, artist to artist, that it's just so hard to say. I guess I'll say just for my own discography, like there have been the occasional things where I've only made one track with like some piece of gear. I guess that I wouldn't say that feels too bad because either you're able to like sell the thing and recoup most of what you would have paid for it, or like I might still have it, and if I do hold on to something it's because I have an intention to use it again, and so hopefully it's not the last song that I make with it. So yeah, I think that's how I look at it. Let's take a look at another track. What do we have?
you want to go 48 Phantom Rainbow?
48, the Phantom Rainbow.
I love that
Cool name. Yeah. General mixing feedback, very open to critique and suggestions. All right, let's take a listen. Oops. I'm going to just record over your track here. Here we go. Cool transition. Ooh, I love this vocal. This is really cool. Love this build up. Sick. Interesting. Cool stuff in the background. This vocal sounds awesome. Ooh, that was so interesting. I'm definitely a fan of that like through composed vibe, you know, like section to section, it just doesn't repeat. For me, it did feel a little short, though. I mean, by the time I got to the end, I was like, okay, I can see that working as like a really cool, hectic thing that is always evolving. But there's so much good hooky stuff that I wouldn't be mad if you wanted to structure it more traditionally and have another one of those build-ups and another one of those drops with some variation to it. That was really cool. I think like, I mean, that's kind of like my big picture feedback. There were a couple things I noticed that we could talk about that are just like really minor. I want to listen to the, is it this section again? Or no, wait, this section. Oh no, it wasn't this. I mean, that was great, and maybe we'll go back to it. Maybe it was here. Yeah, huh. So what I'm hearing is this is such a minor detail, but I think it could make a difference. The kick has a lot of sustain to it, and I feel like for this fast of a beat and for the kind of general the assortment of sounds that we're hearing, a tighter kick might really work. Let me just like, you know, fast and dirty. This is gonna affect the whole track, of course, but like, I don't know if it's gonna quite demonstrate what I want to demonstrate, but yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Like just having something that doesn't sustain at that volume for so long, or maybe it just like cuts right off, you know, a really tight decay kick. I wonder if that could work. Maybe something with a bit more of like a snap or a click to it. Such an interesting drop though. Love those synth sounds. And then what comes in here? Oh yeah, the chops. Yeah, I feel like, you know, barring like the subtlest things, the mix is feeling really great. Solo section was cool. Let's come back to here. I think in this first vocal section, one little other thing stood out to me. Yeah, I guess it's like a couple things. Is there's sort of this sense of openness and busyness kind of like colliding. And I wonder again if we can like remove something. What is the thing I'm looking for? Oh yeah, okay. For some reason that's not what I expected that waveform to look like, but yeah, I mean, I'm just playing around a bit. I think that maybe what I'm searching for in this section is a couple different things, like a little bit more of a build, a little bit more space for this great vocal, and I guess just a little more glue, because I think, I mean, we're talking about subtleties for sure, but there are these elements that feel very filtered and chill, and then there are these other elements that feel very fast, exciting, upbeat. And I think that, you know, sometimes a big contrast can work. I wonder if here that's sort of like what you build towards, but it could start a little more pulled back where you don't have that level of energy right out the gate. Just an idea. And then final thing I want to talk about is maybe the vocal production, which again is like great. I think maybe something with like it sounds like you've pitched it probably, and the like high end has a bit of that like shimmer on, you know, the sibilance and maybe the reverb as well. Yeah, and you know, it's like a stylistic thing, potentially something that you want to have a look at is like smoothing out those S's, or maybe a darker or shorter reverb. But I mean, yeah, I'm like searching to find feedback here because I feel like you've done such a great job with all of this. Yeah, awesome track. Let's try one more and we'll do some questions again.
Sure, let's do 28, Liam Vander.
All right. Liam, number 28. Oh, wait, let's do the full mix. All right, so just mix feedback again. Great, cool. Ooh, I like this change up. Sounds like two different vocalists. That's a cool choice. Love the melody, love the chord progression. Bird sounds are always nice. Really great slow build, having these different chord instruments swelling in. I can control my thoughts or dreams. Wow, gorgeous. I don't think you need to do much in this section. I think... Wait, we gotta wait for the drop. Ooh. I love that. I love the way you transition that, where it like it's a hard cut to that filtered thing, which is like the downbeat of that section, and then you just pop into full color. So yeah, a couple thoughts so far. I'm going to assume that this is kind of like a double length drop, like what we heard before. And we kind of chill out at the end. Again, sorry for the sake of time, I don't know that we should listen to the full thing of every track, but yeah, cool. Like the piano outro. Okay, so yeah, in this chiller section, what stood out to me is a really, really cool like gluing of all your background instruments, and like it sounds like more and more things are added in over time, but maybe also you're taking things away as it goes. It's a really cool flow. My one thought was like maybe the occasional instrument you want to kind of like have pop out of that glue, if that makes sense. Like it feels like one mass that is changing and growing, but maybe we can find some of your individual stems here. What's happening with here? Chords and ambience and stuff. You got your vocals there. We've got. Okay, so these are like your wind and birds. Okay, so we have this turning into. Oh, I'm not sure why one drops off and then the other, it sounds like the exact same thing. But yeah, so we don't have your individual layers there. I think that, you know, when I started to hear some stuff creep in, I felt like, oh, maybe there's like strings that are going to come. Or, you know, maybe this synth will become a focus or something. And I don't think you necessarily need to change it a lot. This is just an idea. Maybe it would be interesting of instead of taking that kind of like big massive sound approach the whole way, there are some elements that kind of like poke out. And then I wanted to talk about the vocal there. Oh wait, I was looking for something that's soloed, but I think I already turned it off. So we've got cool. These layers work so great together. Get out of my head, you're not there. Huh. You're not there. Get out of my head. So hearing them individually, what I'm listening to right now is that I felt like when it first came in, there was a little bit of like a lo-fi quality to it, like just in the recording resolution. I think what I was hearing was this affected version where you have a bit of that kind of like high-end artifact on top. And I didn't really hear that in, you know, on its own. I wonder if you don't need that, or if maybe it comes in later, or if maybe it's, you know, an accent rather than a constant thing. Because these voices are so beautiful on their own. And to my ear anyway, having this one in the mix felt like it just turned it into sounding like your microphone wasn't as good quality. But, you know, this is just a cursory listen. Yeah, I wonder if there's like a world where... Or... Man, this is a trip. It really, it sounds different in all different combinations and with the instruments and without. But anyway, I'll leave that there. Something to think about. And then my only other feedback was here in this main drop, the chord synths were like mega loud. I think that, yeah, you have a few layers of them. I think you could overall pull those back and still have just as much impact and let the snare really come through more. And maybe change up the snare because that feels like... Feels like a very acoustic type of snare for this type of genre. I don't know, just quickly we can like mess with it a bit, but... Okay, I'm searching for like a tighter, punchier sound of, you know, could be cool. And something definitely I think that cuts through more. But yeah, really cool track. Love that. All right, let's get into some other questions.
You wanna pick one, or should I just pick one for you?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'll take a look at the chat again. But yeah, what do you have right now while we are catching up?
Paul Rafe writes, I feel like video is a big hurdle. Cameras, lighting, angle, setting, editing, and post-production. It just feels like there's a lot to set up before actually getting to performing / recording the part.
Yeah, that's big. I mean, I'm even thinking of like just getting this live stream going was a pretty big ordeal for us, and we have like specific lighting that, well, in part I got some new lights last week, and now we're getting used to them, and they might become permanent for all kinds of video work. But yeah, it's oh, thanks. I can't even keep track of cutting between my screen and my camera here. Like, there's so much going on. I guess that's what I'll have to say about it, is just that, like, it is that, and you have to embrace that. But doing all the things that make it as easy as possible, like, if you can have some dedicated part of your space for it, if you can leave things set up. I bought on Amazon a whole pile of these like quick release things. So like I have my, small handheld GorillaPod bendy tripod things. I have my bigger tripods. We started using shoulder rigs for some of our recent stuff. I have my top down camera rig. So each of these things, I'll put this quick release lock thing. So it's just like a 2-part thing. Part of it goes in the tripod, part of it goes on the camera, but they just snap together. And so stuff like that, when you can find it, like anything where you can just remove any of that hassle, any of that friction from the workflow of setting up. Another thing is I've got these LED lights, not these new ones I was just talking about, although I haven't learned about them yet. I think they also do this, but you can have them on an app. You can set any different color on them. So if you just get your like different setups, like you have the blue that you like, you have the natural tone that you like, you have the pink that you like, and just having presets for being able to turn them on from an app and not having to like readjust them per shoot, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I could think of more examples, but I think that's really what it comes down to, is like every possible way that you can have something that you can kind of like leave it or like with one button kind of be ready. Because I know the setup is a thing that definitely has stopped me sometimes from shooting or from being able to get something done in the day that I wanted to do it. Yeah, hope that helps. What else do we have?
I really like this one. Oates Jenkin writes, in your book, you mentioned cutting out hobbies that weren't as helpful for your long-term goals. What was your process in deciding which were worth keeping around?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I cut out a lot of hobbies, and I only kept, as far as I recall, I kept exercise to a degree, like that's fluctuated in different times in my life, and I kept reading, which I guess has also been different just depending on the kinds of things that I was picking up. And some books really draw you in and others are kind of a slog, but I think I was just thinking about what felt like it was going to be healthy and maybe serve other long-term goals too, like personal development and staying relatively in shape and all that. But the things that I cut out were like gardening, chess, a lot of cooking, video games, which I guess, while I enjoyed them all, and, some of them you could say, like chess is like some mental development or staying sharp, and gardening is relaxing, there's things like that. But I guess I just kind of picked the ones that I felt most beneficial. And then the other ones, it's interesting, like I actually just had this conversation with Essa, my wife, the other day, when she was like, hey, if you just couldn't do music, like what would you do? Because right now all you do besides family is music. And just like, do you have anything else that you would do? And I could not think of what it was. And I was thinking back to these other hobbies, and I was like, yeah, I used to play chess like every day on my lunch break. I used to garden every day. in the summer here in cold, dead Canada. And I actually don't miss those things. And I think it's because like I did them a good amount and I felt like, okay, I got the feel for it. I wasn't just like surface level. I also didn't go like so deep and like become a super green thumb or a grandmaster or whatever. But I feel like I enjoyed it. I got a taste of it. I, met some other people through it even. But, I could go back to it, but I also could leave it. And I think that maybe is a difference, having, had these seasons where I did it a lot or didn't do it at all. And I know with something like exercise, for example, the times in my life where I haven't done exercise at all, I have noticed myself feeling worse and I have noticed myself missing it and craving it. So maybe that, there could be a barometer with that, and like which are the kind of highest priority things where you're like, no, that really feels like something that I'll miss. Let's do one more question.
Yeah.
You see one to...
Miguel Duarte writes, do you ever deal with constantly falling in and then suddenly out of love with certain ideas? They feel a bit lost and stop knowing what they think is good or not.
Ooh, yeah, this is an interesting one. And I don't know if you're speaking about like a general idea or a specific idea, like one song versus like one approach to making music, let's say, is an example of general versus specific. But I think on both fronts it happens where I don't know if I'm taking the right approach with something, or I have got an idea for, let's say, a track going and it's hard to tell if I like it as much as I did when I started it or whatever. I think that with time you figure those things out. And my approach has sort of been like, have enough things on the go that there's always something that I'm interested in. And it's sort of a balance, I think, of like enough things that there's always something to switch gears to or to dip into when you're kind of like falling out of something else, that you may or may not go back into. You don't know at the time. And then on the flip side of that, if you have way too many things, then I think your attention and your time and your energy just gets too splintered, and you need to have these like bigger focuses. So I think that's sort of been my approach, if that makes sense. Let's listen to a few more tracks, eh?
Yeah. Let's do 34, Patrick Isley.
34. All right. Thanks, Ryan. Not a pro streamer. Let's look at the form. Patrick said, I would like some feedback on the arrangement of instrumental elements and also advice how to make the kick, snare, click sounds match better. Okay. Oh no, is that a guitar? Just came in so like honking. I like that the vocal has a synth line matching it note for note. Cool. We got another shorter and through composed one. Sort of through composed. There are some elements that carry through. Wow, interesting. I I love that we have such like unique creations in our little community. Definitely, yeah, I see what you mean about like fitting the track to those drum and percussive elements. Let's go back a bit. Yeah, I think like it works, but I know what you mean. It feels like there's something that could like cohere better. The clicks that you mentioned, is that this that we're hearing? Does that stick around? Oh, there's also, yeah. So I don't know if you're a fan of Owen Pallett, Patrick. I thought of him while listening to this. Actually, I haven't checked out a lot of the new Owen Pallett. I think there's a record that I'm not up on. But In Conflict came to mind. That's an album that definitely blends acoustic instrumentation and vocal melodies at the forefront and these like electronic touches. And I think you could take some inspiration from that with how maybe this is an idea. You have like a pretty standard beat. Maybe a large part of this or certain sections of it, it's not like a snap on 2 and 4 type of thing. You know, you've got that. I think where was that? Yeah, you got that little click thing happening in the background. That I think is actually, you don't need to touch that. And more elements like that where it's like, I don't really know exactly what percussion instrument that is. And it's not playing like, one of your standard kind of backbeat rhythms. I wonder if that would be an interesting approach here for a song that is already like a little bit off kilter in a lot of ways. Like the melody, it's diatonic, but it doesn't sound like a standard melody. It's very unique. Same with like your general combination of instruments. So I think that would be my instinct about kind of unlocking that drum issue for you. And then feedback on the arrangement of instrumental elements in general. Let me just hop through a couple sections. I think there were a couple other things that came to mind. Well, first of all, do we want this to be a saxophone? Like, just saying. Oh, yeah, okay. You've got that, like, noise sweep thing that happens a couple times. I think later on... Did you... Yeah. That stood out to me as a bit incongruous, because that feels like a very, like, dancey EDM type of sound. And, of course, there's no rules to this, but it has those connotations for me. And so it took me out of this other world that you have created here. And I wonder if there's another way that you can create that effect, maybe like mallets on a crash cymbal, or maybe just like a different type of noise, or just a different type of sound or instrument that gives that feeling of like a swelling and unswelling. That could be something to think about. And then let's check out a few other sections here. Yeah, one other thought with this, like, what if you take the drums out? Leave that cool little like clicky thing. That creates a lot of great tension and it keeps the beat. But I wonder if this could work like without the drums, or maybe with like just the kick and that click. That could be cool. And then yeah. And what you're doing with the live kit here is sort of like the big version of what I'm talking about. You have something that's not doing an exact like backbeat pattern. It's very creative. Yeah, I think bring that energy to some of the other sections maybe. And then the last thing I'll say is just like a detail, but the bass tone stood out to me. I love the lines that you were doing, but it was maybe a bit on like the um, high end, like attacky sort of sounding vibe. And I wonder if maybe taming that would be another thing to help kind of like make this all a bit more cohesive. Really interesting track though. Nice job. Let's line up another one. You have another?
Yeah, let's do 19. Gorley.
19. All right, what did we say here? Curious to get your opinion about arrangements and song lengths. This track is part of a 5-song EP. Each track name is a line in a poem. Cool. To tell a short story. Finding that most of the tracks are under 2 minutes and feel as though they are too short, but making them longer just leads to essentially arbitrary changes. When do you feel a song is fully arranged, and do you pay any consideration to the length of the song? Yeah, good questions. Good questions. Wow, it's really cool when like you don't know what any of the instruments are. That main kind of like pulse is a really cool sound. It almost feels like it slightly speeds up at times in a cool way. This is heavy. Okay, I think that it feels like it still hasn't gotten to the place it wants to go, but I know you've said this is part of a 5-song EP that tells a story, so maybe, you know, the next track is the payoff for it. That's sort of like the big thing that strikes me, is that I don't know that we've gotten like a full payoff. Definitely this first like bass hit is a great, awesome feeling moment, but it feels like it's still like there's so much tension, you know, and it keeps going and then just kind of like stops, as opposed to like reaching something that feels very final. But yeah, listening to, I mean, it's two different sections. I think that in the early part, there's a lot of stuff that kind of continues to carry over into the second section. I'm not sure if you need all of it. We're looking at these textures. We have this pluck, which, oh, kind of like plays off of the high part. They kind of like overlap a bit but leave space for each other. What are these keys? Okay, yeah, so I really like the pluck here. Oh, and there's kind of like a rattling bowl type of vibe too. Yeah, I love this sound. And what's windpipe? Right, okay. This sound stood out to me. Maybe it's just a mix thing. felt like that was the thing that was causing the most clashes to me. Because without it, I feel like I could hear everything else more distinctly. Like this great, very gnarly tone that kind of covers a lot of frequency. And this part that's also very cool. Plus you already also have these like higher parts. So I think that, yeah, that one was standing out as maybe the least important sound and maybe the most kind of like stock sound, I want to say. Like, you know, all the sounds are, I can't exactly place them, but it felt like everything else was a little more crafted. I wonder if we did the inverse, you know, leave this in and take out these two other higher ones, where we end up. Yeah, I feel like these are giving us good... These are more emotive to me, you know? They have, like, almost string-like vibes. They're a lot more alive, I think. I think that's what it is. And this feels a little bit more synth preset-ish. And maybe it was just a little high in the mix. But yeah, I think, yeah, challenging maybe to give more feedback or more specific feedback, because this is such a unique piece and I'm not exactly sure like what world you're coming from in terms of, you know, genre, or like, you know, this is one part of a story. But yeah, some cool stuff, and definitely gotta hear this one more time. Love that hit. I mean, just that on its own is like a movie scene. But I did want to just address your question about length and like knowing when things feel like they're fully arranged. I think here, like, you have created something that's, you know, clearly not pop. So maybe you were not thinking exactly in terms of those 5 things I mentioned earlier: the pads, lead, rhythm, fills, and the 5th thing, foundation. Why do I forget foundation? But I think you've done things that do kind of like get that cover a lot of those bases in an experimental way. So arrangement wise, I don't know that I necessarily have a lot to comment on without having like the full context of where you're coming from genre wise. Like maybe a lead part, but listening to this main section, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's lacking a lead part either. Like I'm not like waiting for someone to play some kind of like perfect do re mi thing over top of it. So, you know, take that or leave that. And then as far as length, this I feel like very free about length. I you know, have done different types of records where like stuff is very standard 3.5 minute pop. I've done stuff where like, you know, it's a 1 minute song even though it's hip hop, or I've done some stuff that's very long. And, you know, I did an ambient thing that was the YouTube version was 2 hours. The streaming platform version was 45 minutes. I think that it's totally just like what you feel, and you should totally feel confident to like make that choice, however you think. Yeah, I think that, you know, if you want to like aim for certain kinds of, you know, markets or whatever, then maybe you want to think about what listeners expect. But I feel like with this type of piece, it can be so free to like to just do whatever you want. Yeah. Let's do one more, and then we'll get into some more questions.
Yeah, let's do 32. Oates Jenkins never wrote.
32.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Still mixing, and I haven't finished putting vocals during the best switch section, but I just love any thoughts for creative production ideas or anything at all to make it as interesting and cool as possible. Especially let me know of any negative feedback that I can use to switch up the track. Okay, cool. Cool vocal production. And like melody, harmony choices. Really like interesting mix of instrumentation. And it's like reminding me of 5 different genres. I would say this chorus could use more variation. Oh wow, that was cool. Key change and tempo change. I love that switch up. Wow. Ooh, I kind of want to hear that vocal again. Like I want to just... Oh wait, we're listening to the full track, not the stem. Okay, but let's find out how it ends. Oh wait, we gotta hear what this next change up is. What? Love that ending. Okay, yeah, the switch ups are really fun. I think that my big feedback is to create more dynamics, like make everything you're doing even more dramatic. So like if you're gonna switch it up, really switch it up. I mean, you did have a cool... I gotta hear this transition again. There was a very nice, like gradual and very cohesive way that you did it. But I think when it lands, you could do something to really be like, this is a totally new section. Right, right. Yeah. So the vocal is what I'm paying attention to there and how you chopped it. And obviously the key change grabs your ears. And a lot of instruments carry over. Yeah, and it's like an odd number of beats. Really cool. Yeah, I think you could make that more dramatic and have like instrumentation completely change, or like mostly change. It seems like you've held on to... Let's go to the stems here. If we take out like the vocals... Yeah, it's like mostly, maybe even entirely the same instruments. And I think when you have a switch that dramatic, it could be cool to have, like, even if you're playing the same notes, switch up the instrument, possibly switch up the rhythms and stuff like that. Like you, is this the lead? Yeah, so it's like doing the same kind of thing in a new key. Maybe it's about like having that be different as well. You know, it kind of depends on what you're going for. Yeah, like some switch ups are, you know, very different, and some are meant to be like a different take on the same thing. But yeah, I do think there are some ways that if you make that more of a contrast, that would help. I want to back up to earlier in the track. Yeah. A lot of cool stuff going on. And I want to find, there's like, maybe just like one too many layers or something, because, you know, there's great stuff happening with the vocal production. I feel like that's what wants to shine. And then you have these cool fills, which I would keep as well. The like gliding thing. I wonder, oh wait, and I even have this muted. Sorry.
Make it work.
Is that like, oh no, we were listening to the full mix before. I am figuring out how DAWs work. I think that maybe this? Maybe it's the lead.
Is it really better that it didn't work? Is it really better that it didn't work?
Yeah, so this was another thing I was going to mention, and I mean, it comes back to contrast. In some of the sections, or maybe all the sections, you could have more distinct, like, half sections, you know? Like, the, just as an example, let's turn everything back on, but we'll take out, like, the pads and shakers for the first, I got to do some counting here. I don't know, is this it? Or actually the lead, too. What if it's like that?
Make it work. Make it work.
And maybe it, like, you know, is more gradual.
Is it really better that it didn't work? Is it really better that it didn't work?
Yeah, like I feel like that creates more interest and dynamics, and just leaving space for the really cool stuff that you've done with your vocal and like ear candy stuff. I love this. Yeah, so like similar feedback. You've done such a cool bit of vocal production that I don't want other stuff to clash with it. And this vocal part is very sustained, and it's kind of like on most of the time. You know, you're not like taking a lot of breaks, not leaving a lot of space. So maybe again with this pad or this really sustained bass. You know, curious to hear what that section is like if we took that out. Like we would want some kind of bass support, but maybe it's more plucky, or maybe there's space in the bass. You know, just some random suggestions about how you might go about addressing that if you like these ideas. But yeah, like so many cool effects happening. I just don't want to lose those. I'll leave space for them. Yeah, cool track though. Thanks for submitting that. I've kind of lost track. Have we done a few tracks in a row now? Should we go back to some questions and
Some questions.
head towards wrapping up? Maybe we'll go a little past 10, but yeah, why don't we do a few more questions, a few more tracks, a few more questions, and then we'll call it.
Cool. I like this one. Sam, I'm not Pete, says, for people with really common names, what goes into a good pen name / artist name? How important is a name in general for amateurs?
That's a great question. How important is a name in general? I think that, I mean, if it's a really, really common name, I don't know if like a John Smith is gonna have a good time trying to get out there. But like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, at the same time, like, Sam Smith is doing great. I don't know if it's super important. I think it can help though. Definitely, I would think about searchability in our day and age. I think this is more funny than actually useful. But if this was 30 years ago, I would think about like alphabetization. Like what are you going to show up near in the record store, or like what letters are even going to be visited in the record store more often than others. Or what's going to show up at the top of a list, things like that. In this day and age, I think search just ends up being so important because like everybody's online, everybody's got a username. Google reaches into everywhere. So having something that is distinct enough that if people, want to find out more about you, they're not going to be getting a bunch of other random search results. I do think that can make a big difference. But also at the end of the day, if you're doing everything else right and you've got an amazing sound, you can probably still break through as a Smith or whatever. Yeah, interesting question though. What else do we have?
Vox Capacitor says, Andrew, I always end up with far too many parts on tracks and having to subtractively compose. Should I focus on doing less is better?
Cool question. Subtractively composing because you've layered up a ton of stuff. I would say that's actually the better way a lot of the times. I think it's so much better if you can become confident about making cuts. I mean, like if you have been seeing what I've been doing going through tracks tonight, like people are pretty good about adding stuff in. And even when it's not like, I don't mean to single this one project out, but it's not necessarily tons and tons of tracks. We're also looking at stems rather than thanks, right? We're also looking at stems rather than an entire project. But I think when you can add much more than you need, that's a way better place to be in. And the feedback that I'm giving is like finding that balance. Like, what are your ideas, but which ones complement each other? Which ones maybe aren't needed at all? Which ones need to shine more? Those are the golden questions. And I'm not often, listening to all of the work that we've been hearing tonight and saying like, oh, we need to have like a whole other bunch of parts here and like, add this in, and add this in. We are doing a lot of subtractive work. And it's not necessarily like taking something out of the whole song, but it's like, does this need to happen, just once or twice? Does this need to be removed for a section, half a section, the first half, the back half? Does it need to fade in? Do we need to just like chop off the high end? Like all of this stuff is like where stuff comes together. And that I just keep on learning over and over as I keep making tunes is, more is better, but also you have to get so good at knowing what to remove, or if you want to think about it a different way, what to leave in. I think that's a great approach, and keep on going with like having a lot of stuff. Another great way to think about it actually is like build kind of your full biggest part of your song. Maybe that's the drop or the chorus, let's say. If you work in a loop based way, make a really full loop or section, and then to create other sections, you can take combinations of those different parts. That's one really cool way to work. But great question. Yeah, we look at one more.
Yeah, I like this one. Paul Ray says, what's a 1st of October or Sonic Boom song you feel speaks to the advantage of getting together with other musicians in a room? In other words, what's something you think you wouldn't have made without Rob?
Yeah, great question about collaborating and when, getting together with someone else brings out something better. And I think, every different combination of creators, if they're, if they're in it and wanting to try things and open-minded. I think every different collab partner you could have will lead to something new and different. So all the stuff that I've done with Rob, like maybe with the exception of the stuff where we've kind of ended up doing our own thing and then the other person just like adds an overdub or whatever, like a lot of it really comes out of our particular chemistry and like the ways that even if like for instance some of the stuff on Sonic Boom, we still kind of think about this stuff like because it's on my channel, I will take a little bit more of the lead on songwriting proportionally speaking. But having Rob there, he is making very big contributions about like what stays in the song, what doesn't make it, like the way he responds and like his taste and just what having another pair of ears saying like, oh, that really stood out to me, or that sounds awesome when I'm spewing out a sea of stuff. That is so helpful and fully shapes the end product, of course. Wait, what was the first part of that question? I think there was something.
Yeah, they said, what's the first of October or Sonic Boom song you feel speaks to the advantage of getting together?
Oh,
with
right.
two
Yeah.
musicians?
A specific song. Yeah, I don't know if any particular one stands out. I definitely, I favor the more serious efforts or whatever, like as fun as like banjo metal is or like slide whistles. I do like that we're maybe more often trying to like just like make something that sounds really cool. And yeah, I guess there isn't necessarily just one example, because I do feel like every time something special happens that wouldn't have happened with another person or on my own. Yeah. Let's do one more question, then we'll look at a couple more tracks.
Yeah, it's kind of related. Cash Murphy says, who do you bounce your ideas off most? How important is others' feedback in shaping your final production?
Yeah. I definitely have a lot of people listen to my stuff due to my hearing issues and just like making sure I'm not doing anything super wacky with the bass, where most of my issues are. I love having another set of ears for most projects. There are a couple things where maybe like the genre is so specific or so weird, or like I've tried to make something that doesn't necessarily fit with anything, where I'm just kind of like, if I wanted feedback from someone, I would really want it to be someone who's like deeply in love with these 6 entirely different albums, and otherwise it might not really make sense, and I'm just kind of trying to do my own weird conglomeration of stuff. I think in general, I am getting feedback from like the other people on my team, Ryan over here, Marty, who's worked with me for a few years, and also like those 2 guys are music people for sure, but also other folks in my life who are just, they I think, okay, so one great example, my wife Essa, she listens to lots of different stuff, but also definitely knows a lot more kind of like mainstream music. And I think she has a great sense of when something is just kind of falling flat, or like I maybe thought it was done, but she knows that it needs more work. And it's not even necessarily because she's like, oh, this section was dry, or this section didn't have enough energy, or like anything like that. But she just, as a listener, has a great sense of like, I know that could hit harder. And I think that is that's almost the best thing to have, is like anyone that who's just like a music lover and who can tell you like, yeah, I see what you're going for, and I think you can do better. And, hopefully they can give a few specifics, but yeah, definitely that helps. And I guess I'll just say like, for some things, maybe knowing when you're trying to make something for yourself versus something for public consumption, or maybe, in a slightly different way to look at it, something where you're like, you have this very particular vision versus like making something that definitely slots in with a certain scene or genre, or, maybe you're like producing for somebody else. Yeah, I think being pretty clear about that makes it more clear as to where and how much outside feedback makes sense to look for. All right, let's take a look at a couple more tracks. We can go a little bit over. I think maybe let's do 15 more minutes. We'll do a couple more tracks and we'll take a couple final questions. And yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying the stream.
Let's do
What?
42, Sage Reynolds.
Sorry, did you say 22?
42.
42. Sage Reynolds. Any feedback on the writing, composition, performances, and or production would be greatly appreciated. Feedback on sample instruments would be helpful too. All right, cool. Wow. Sounds pristine. Very atmospheric.
Down, gray. Shoulder there, but wait. Street Kings.
Gorgeous.
The last of my kin, grand centenarian, sway.
Ooh, that's a good chord. Huh.
I've braved 1,000 storms. Now come, crash, creep slow. My brothers are a foe.
I was gonna say this keys part felt like a little out of place at first, but now that I hear you're kind of like bringing in other things and taking us somewhere, it seems a little different than where we started. Maybe it works. Let's find out where we are going. Oh, I love these textures.
I'm the tallest soul for miles around. With crooked arms and primal song. Rasp and groan, rattle bones, dulcet tones. I
Okay. As our time is ticking down, I'm gonna do a little skipping. Ooh, okay, how did we get there?
daydreams.
Wow, okay. Yeah, there's some amazing sounds and textures. This is cool. Okay, we got another cool through composed thing here.
And one inside, large cracks in a hard shell. You've weathered change with grand grace, rustling
Okay, wow. So many things to talk about. Yeah, I mean, this was fantastic. Great job, Sage Reynolds. A few things stood out to me, and then there's like kind of a lot of things that I would love to just take a look at. So that keyboard sound, where when I made that comment, oh, I've lost it now. What? Did I zoom to a different level? I think, was it here? No, cymbals. Here we go. This part. Yeah, when it started to build here, and you started bringing in, there was kind of like that sort of electronic tinged tick-tock. I thought you were going to be building it to a more electronic place, a more maybe beat-driven place. And at that thought, you know, I was feeling like, okay, maybe that's what the keys are doing. They're bringing us more into that world. But then it didn't quite go there. And so I would still say maybe, you know, purely opinion, when these keys come in, I love what they're doing note-wise. I just wonder if the sound takes us too much outside of this world of this like wonderful string stuff that's going on. Is that this? Because this sound is so much less dynamic, and I wonder, you know, maybe are other bowed strings doing that, or like a background vocal ensemble or something. And then similar feedback, there was a part where a synth came in later. And this stood out to me for the same reason. It just felt a little incongruous. Again, like really cool part with the notes and the performance, the timing, everything. But this world without it has like this darkness to it and this organicness to it. Even though like your you know, where is it? Is it this? The bass, yeah. Like that feels like an electronic part, but it definitely has this like dirt and this texture to it that this just stood out to me as being so clean and pretty and maybe like a little on the sterile side. And so I feel like finding something to do that part, or maybe not even needing that part, that would be my feedback there. And then in this section, it was so big and intense, I felt like you could do more beat wise. Just some like impactful things. I don't know if that's like Tycho's toms or like an actual kit or something, but to just like have it drive more could be really cool. This feels like something that would like score a movie scene, for how it changes and builds and flows and has different parts. And you know, one other thing that stood out to me was I think this like other vocalist only comes in this one section, which was cool, like maybe a surprise, but maybe also something that if you wanted to aim for more cohesiveness could be brought in earlier for other parts. And man, I would just love to know these background parts. Oh, it's a marimba. Interesting. I love that. And you know, I think you had a comment about your use of samples. I couldn't tell a lot of the time what was sampled or like what was a sample instrument or not. I think you did a great job with those. Yeah, really, really cool track. And I'll just say, I mean, I don't have any feedback on the vocals. They sound fantastic. Yeah, just wanted to mention that because they were great. Cool. Did I say one more or two more? Or?
I can't remember.
Well, you know what? We're at 10:10. Let's do a few more questions. I think that is like a pretty epic one to go out on. Thank you so much, everybody who submitted. Sorry if I was not able to get to you. We did have a lot of submissions, but I'm also doing one more stream Thursday morning, my time. So please feel free to join again, and we'll get to a bunch more of these. But yeah, with our last few minutes of overtime, let me know if there's some more questions.
I can get you a question if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hit me with it.
Cash Murphy says, do you have any tips on writing lyrics? In Sonic Boom and 1st of October, you've mentioned it's like solving a puzzle. How do you approach it?
Yeah, I don't know if my approach to writing lyrics is fairly common or totally weird, but I definitely similar to that idea of like throwing a lot of stuff on your track and having a lot of layers and working subtractively. I kind of do that. Obviously, you know, most of the time you just have one lyric happening at a time, but I do put a lot on the page. And I think you can even see in Sonic Boom, there are things, you know, if you pause on those sections where the camera's pointed at my notepad or my phone, there's usually a bunch of lines that are not anywhere in the final track. So again, that idea of being totally comfortable with putting a lot of stuff out there and also cutting a lot of stuff, including stuff that you like, for sure. Like ultimately you have a certain amount of space that you get to use in a song and you want it to be the best stuff. So, I mean, this is so silly, but one thing that I do just for me is like in my, when I'm typing lyrics anyway, I have a little line break at the bottom of the lyrics, and I just like keep all of the other lines that I came up with. And that's just like for no other reason other than, you know, years from now, I might come across that document again and be like, oh yeah, this other like 75% good line. I'm just going to appreciate you again for like 5 seconds. And you know that, I mean, I have a hard time with cuts even now, you know, having done this for so long and knowing that it's the best thing for the song to like have more and call back. But yeah, approaches for lyric writing, I do a lot of different things. I definitely use a rhyming dictionary and a thesaurus and like different rhyming dictionaries because sometimes they have different results. I got a lot of like tricks to kind of get things going. Like, you know, you could do a Google search for something in your lyrics that will kind of like just produce tangential sort of things that maybe spark new ideas or even just other words that you can use. Or searching other things like search Pinterest, search Etsy. Like I totally embrace this like internet information highway thing that we've got going on where you can just call up a bunch of like kind of related stuff and that's just instant inspiration a lot of the time. I have a video on my channel called like the 5 best ways to start a song, I think, something like that. And at the end of it, there's a huge section on lyrics. Definitely check that out. The thing that I'll pull out from there is a technique that I got from Jeff Tweedy's book. Also highly recommended. I think it's called How to Write One Song, which is such a killer title. And he turned me onto this idea of doing, I think he came up with this, or maybe this is what I named his thing, a word ladder. So you have 2 columns of words, and each column is just words that are related to 2 completely different things. So like on one side, maybe you have drinks, and on another side you have mushrooms. I don't know, maybe those are both like things you eat, so it's too close, but like you have 2 different topics and you just put down, say, 10 words in each column, and then you just like pair things from the columns. So like as an example, like in my mushroom column maybe I have cap, and in my drinks column maybe I have glass. And if I pick those 2 words, I have a glass cap, which is like, I don't know, a glass hat, or now I'm thinking of a glass helmet, or like a face shield. I don't know. So you start like just making these connections and creating images and feelings and things that are a little bit unique. And if anything, maybe you're not using those words, but they are a little piece of inspiration. Sometimes you just need that thing that you're going to work with or against. So yeah, some ideas for you. Hit me with another question.
Yeah, your boy Sam says, what is the number one thing / skill you regret not learning in your musical journey? Was it learning an instrument? Was it creating a good habit?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, what I've been thinking about lately is that I want to take piano lessons again. I think that I was very lucky. I had a mom who was like, you got to do piano. And she drove me to lessons every week. And I got good to a certain degree. And then it kind of fell off when I was like, oh, I want to make beats or I want to play guitar. So I think keeping up that practice is probably the closest thing that I have to regret not keeping up that practice, I should say, and something that I want to get back into. Just having that dexterity to let the ideas flow better, have more interesting performances. So yeah, I think definitely if I were to pass on some kind of advice about that to anyone else, it's those things that that require the upkeep. Like you can learn a new piece of knowledge and hold on to that, and find ways to use that, and I guess there's ways to practice that as well. But there are some things that just require that consistency, that even daily kind of use to keep improving and to stay sharp and to not lose ground. So yeah, I think if I would go back, I would keep on top of piano a little more than I did. I would definitely go months without playing sometimes, and that is too much. Let's do one final question.
Cool. I have some announcements just before we wrap up.
Oh,
this
cool.
as well.
Yeah.
So.
Do you want to come by and announce where people can see and hear you better? This is Ryan.
Hello.
Y'all.
I've been off screen the whole time. I need my notes. What was I gonna say? For anyone who's interested, you can get more occasional news, updates, and offers from Andrew by signing up for his free mailing list. You can find the sign up form at the bottom of most pages on his website, so you can check that out there. And then there is going to be another live stream later, just like this one, on Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern. So if you didn't get to your track today, show
There's
up.
still a chance.
Still a chance. We might get to it. Should we get to that last question? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get to that last question.
Awesome. So, Liam Vanderbilt says, what do you think is the best way for newer artists to get their name out there?
Yeah.
Classic
That's a good
question.
one. And it's always changing a little bit, I think. I would still recommend a lot of what I did, and which I talk about a lot in the book, of just leveraging social media and the fact that we're all so interconnected now, and that you are just like a search or a hashtag or do something that other people are doing right now, and the algorithm might just put you in front of people randomly. You're just like that random thing away from some other person who's looking at their screen. So I think something that I didn't do early enough was really decide what it was that I was going to be and put out there, and what my overall goals and creative values were, kind of what identity I could embrace as an artist. And I still ended up embracing a pretty wide-ranging and eclectic approach. But early on, I was just kind of oh, I'm gonna do whatever I feel like all the time, and that has a certain fun and freedom to it. But I think, in my experience, the focus really helped. So you focus on what I was going to work on, what I was going to present myself as, and how that would reach people, and how they would respond to it. And finding a consistency in that, I think, was a big thing. Because I definitely remember, and this even happens still now as I experiment with different kinds of content. If I look at my analytics, I can see at different times that maybe I was growing by say like 1,000 followers a month, but I was also losing like 500 followers a month or something like that. Like I would see this growth rate, and if you're only looking at what you're gaining, that only tells you part of the picture, because maybe if you're also losing a lot of people at the same time, then you can find different ways that you can be framing your content, or what you want to focus on, or how you're presenting it, that will lead to that greater consistency, that will lead to people, having their expectations fulfilled more often, being more delightfully surprised more often rather than kind of like turned off. So those kinds of things, I think, are, things that we don't always think about. Definitely as, people who are creatively focused, they can seem tangential or like too businessy, or whatever it is. But I think it's very worth thinking about it if, growing an audience is part of what you want to do. Yeah. And I think I think if you're in the stream, you have the book. I put so much thought into like all of that in there. So like rereading those parts, I think is beyond what I've just said, the best thing that I can tell you. But yeah, thanks so much for joining tonight. This was super fun. Very inspired hearing all of this work tonight. Loved the questions. And yeah, if you can make it again on Thursday morning Eastern time,
9 a.m. Eastern time.
9 a.m. Eastern time, we'll be back here doing this again. And also both of these sessions are going to be recorded, and we'll give you the unlisted link when those are available. So yeah, thanks a lot. And I'm going to sign off if I find the right button.